The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to John. Jesus said, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him, because he abides with you, and he will be in you. I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. In a little while the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. On that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. They who have my commandments and keep them are those who love me. And those who love me will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and reveal myself to them." The Gospel of the Lord.
Our reading from John this morning gives us a little bit of gospel whiplash. We're 5 weeks past Easter Sunday, 5 weeks since we celebrated the resurrection. But here, Jesus is talking to the disciples before that, before he enters Jerusalem, before his execution, before his resurrection and reappearance to his friends and disciples. So why are we hearing this now? Jesus wants to prepare them to be the church without him, to take all that he has taught and go forward. He knows this is a daunting task, and he wants to reassure them that they won't have to do it alone. They will be supported and strengthened for what's ahead, to help them remember his teaching, his healing, how he set people free, his strength when things are hard, and when things happen that just seem beyond our understanding, because it all starts with knowing whose you are. When I was growing up, there was a little ritual that happened every time I left the house to spend time with a friend or family, and even if it was my best friend, Lucy McReynolds, who I saw practically every day, or her parents that I knew almost as well as my own. There was no getting out of the door quickly. "Wait just a minute, young lady," my mother would say, and then ask me, "What do you say to Mr. and Mrs. McReynolds?" And I would faithfully reply, "Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir." In this small town where everyone knew everyone else, manners were important. And how you presented yourself reflected on your family and what they had taught you. And then my mother would say, "Okay, have a good time, and remember whose you are." I think at that moment, she was mostly concerned that I not do something to embarrass the family. But as I think back on it now, I see that she was investing me with quite a bit of responsibility to move and act in the world. She was also equipping me to do just that, to remember that we value integrity and courage and responsibility, to be joyful, to be helpful, to speak the truth in a way that is firm but kind, to be aware of the gifts you've been given, and to be generous about sharing them with others, to be loving, and to be receptive to the love of others. This is what Jesus is trying to convey to the disciples. I imagine that they aren't so much in a hurry as they are weary. The 12 he rounded up from fishing boats and tax offices and anywhere else he found them, worn out from traipsing around the country, day after day, heading out early every morning after Jesus had been up praying most of the night, worn out with his radical teaching, healing terrible diseases, rubbing shoulders with the poor and the smelly and the dirty, befriending the disreputable, and standing with Jesus when he confronted the powerful. They were beginning to wonder if this guy, this teacher, in whom they had put such confidence and energy, was he actually going to deliver? Was he really going to be the Messiah? Now he's starting to talk about his death. They're tired. They're worn out. They're a lot scared. So right there on that dusty road, somewhere between their dreams and their distress, Jesus tells them, if they will always keep love as their top priority, a helper will come. They will not be alone. As long as they remember the truth that they have seen, the truth that they have heard, as long as they continue to follow his command to love, to belong to him by loving him and loving each other, they will be supported and strengthened for the hard work that is ahead. He's assuring them they can be fearless. They're equipped for it. Whether they see him or not in the flesh, it's not important. They will be able to do great things in the world, accomplish far more even than he did. The Spirit of truth, Spirit of strength, love of God, this sweet and powerful dove of inspiration can come to us in the most wonderful and incredible ways if we just give ourselves the opportunity to see it and be filled up with it. A lot of you know that in the last few months, I've spent time as a chaplain intern at Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles. Most patients there are like those who followed Jesus, the ones he taught and healed while he was on earth. They were without the means to be treated at the likes of Cedars-Sinai. They're homeless, chronically ill and living on the streets. The lonely, the mentally ill, the addicted and the battered and abused. Often, they don't even have a name. And as a chaplain intern, I got to listen to their stories. Sometimes that was all I could do, and it left me weary, like I was trudging along on a dusty road behind Jesus, fearful of what was next for these patients and feeling that I had so little to offer them. Like Sarah. I first met Sarah because the nurses were at their wits' end trying to get her to submit to the medical treatment she needed. She's non-compliant, chaplain, the nurse told me. Maybe you can get through to her. Sarah's paranoia was muted with me since I wasn't trying to poke her with any needles, and I was not trying to make her feel like her illness was her fault because she spent so little time attending to her diabetes over the years. Sarah told me about her baby girl who died in her arms just 3 days old, about her sons that had been killed on the same terrible day in gang violence. She had descended so quickly into despair, she couldn't even arrange for their funerals. To help her get over her grief, her brother told her a story. He said it was in the Bible. If you cry all the time, your dead family members will go to hell, not heaven. Sarah couldn't stop crying, so she believes that her sons are suffering in hell. Is it true, she asked me? Is that what it says in the Bible, chaplain? Or like Darius, her only surviving son, who told me his mother was so emotionally unstable after his brothers died, she abandoned him for days at a time, that he had to steal bread and meat to eat after being left alone. About the time he had to kill a seagull on the beach in Mexico, pluck it, and cook it under warm running water in a motel room that a previous guest had left open. There's not much meat on a seagull, he told me. I just want my mom to love me just a little. Why won't she love me, Chaplain Carole? Like a woman whose name I did not know when I was called to the ER to sit with her while she died. She was Jane Doe number 2 at the time. As I held her hand, I thought she looked to be about 75 or 80 years old. She was disheveled and dirty, missing teeth, sunken cheeks, emaciated frame. She was never able to speak. She died on a stretcher in a dark corner of the only available space in the ER, which was by the trash bins. with a well-intentioned but bumbling chaplain praying for her, talking and singing her to her rest. After she died, staff found her ID among her things. Her name was Margaret, and she was 53 days younger than I am. At these times, I pleaded for the Holy Spirit to be real to me, to assure me that in fully loving Jesus Christ, I have access to that source of strength to embody his love and carry it fearlessly into the world. And one day, at a point when I felt alone and inadequate in every possible way, I met a man on a bus. At the end of my day, I waited quite a while for the dash to arrive. And when it did, an older Latino man appeared suddenly and got on ahead of me with some difficulty. He carried a couple bulging shopping bags. I wondered if he was living rough. He was kind of disheveled and hyper. I sat across from him. We were the only passengers on the bus, a real anomaly in the middle of rush hour. And I was bemused that he didn't pay for the trip or show some sort of monthly pass, and the driver said nothing to him. "Do you work at the hospital?" He's indicating my Good Sam badge that I'm still wearing. "I'm a volunteer," I tell him. "Are you a nurse?" "No, I'm a chaplain." "Oh, a chaplain. I go to church. I like church a lot." He sits on the edge of his seat, leaning closer to talk to me. His energy is a little bizarre, but it's infectious. "It's nice," I say. And then he starts telling me about his granddaughter. Her 4th birthday's coming up. He describes her. He's clearly smitten with this child. "What's her name?" I asked. "Maya Emily." The way he said it, it's like he's describing the sacred. He goes on to tell me she's just like his wife, who died of cancer. He took care of his wife through her final illness. Soon after, his brother died, and after that, a cousin. It's a lot of suffering to go through, I offer. "Yes, suffering. That's what it is." He's talking very quickly now about his granddaughter and how she's like his wife. He's just oozing joy from every part of his being. "You know," he says, "I'm going on and on and on about my life. You're just listening to me talk. You just listened. You gave me a word for what I feel. That's all I needed." I wished him well and got off at my stop, catty corner from the Red Line station. When I looked up to cross the street, the bus was gone. Standing at the corner of 7th and Flower in downtown LA, I knew that at one of the weariest, dustiest, most discouraging, in other words, most disciple-like moments, I had been visited by the sacred. Do you remember the wonderful board that Mercedes and Beth created for us during Holy Week, where we had an opportunity to write for all to see, "Before I die, I want to," fill in the blank. And we filled them in with the extraordinary and with the ordinary, all heartfelt hopes and dreams. I hope you got a chance to read what others in the community wrote. "Before I die, I want to travel to Zanzibar. I want to go on an adventure. I want to be present. I want to be kinder." One entry said, "I want to be fearless." And below it, somebody else wrote, "Me too." The good news today is that this is exactly what Jesus, our Christ, is calling upon us to do. Aspire to reach out into the world, be in love with God, and be fearless about it. Another hope, and this is my last one. I hope you know that in amazing ways, you're doing it. You're finding the advocate, the strong helper in each other. In the groups that leave here and go to laundromats for laundry love, feed people at Hands of Grace, Southwest Community Center, welcome the strangers to Bourne Hall or to the school, replenish creation with plants around the campus, raise our spirits and inspire us with music and with preaching. Offer without condition from this altar bread and wine of communion to everyone who comes, and also in accepting this humble gift when offered to you. You do this and more with open hearts of love. Pentecost is coming. With joy and love, look for and hold on to that advocate, that strong helper, who might be a guy on a bus, but who is probably right here, sitting right next to you. And remember whose you are. Amen.